following Jesus. There was very little, talk about actually following Jesus and being a disciple of his and what that meant. And there was very little talk about explaining that, look, you're about to enter into spiritual warfare now. I mean, before, when you're just living for yourself, there's no point in Satan attacking you. It's when you start following him, when you start following Jesus and actually doing something for the kingdom, then the fight is on. If we're playing basketball and people are running back and forth and you're supposed to guard me and I'm just standing at mid-court, looking at the cheerleaders or eating popcorn, are you going to guard me? No. You just leave me alone. You go, with those in the game, you guard them. But what if I get the ball and I start taking it to the hole? Which I can. And I'm just scoring left and right. Then suddenly everyone starts attacking, right? Then suddenly I get guarded, double teamed, triple teamed. And in the same way, no one explained that to me in my walk with the Lord, that once I decided to follow Jesus, I would have a very, very real enemy. And the more I get into ministry and the further I, with greater passion, begin to serve him and love him, guess what the enemy is going to do? Okay, now let's start attacking this guy. Now let's go after these people. And here you have these early believers who are following Jesus passionately, persecuted. They're scattered everywhere. And so Peter says to them, he goes, hey, don't be surprised. Don't be surprised. What did you think was going to happen? This is going to happen to you. Later in chapter 5, verse 8, he says that you've got an adversary. And he prowls around. He's trying to devour you. Did that thought even enter your mind this week? That you have an enemy? See, a lot of times we don't take this seriously. When's the last time you woke up and thought someone's after me today? That's why in chapter 5, verse 8, he says, be sober-minded, be watchful. Your adversary, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion seeking someone to devour. He says, be sober-minded, be on the alert, be aware that someone's trying to take you down. Right now, as much as the leaders of this church are trying to get you to just love Jesus, to follow him, to serve him, just as passionately, there's an enemy right now that's doing everything he can to distract you. Everything he can to tempt you. Everything he can to put doubts in your head. Every painful thing that comes in, the enemy is going to get in your mind and say, where's your God? Is he not good? It's just this whole war that's going on, and we have to be ready for it. That's why I love that passage. He says, don't be surprised. And he says, beloved, do not be surprised. I just love the way Peter words things. I love you guys. I love you, my beloved people, my friends, my brothers, my sisters. Don't be surprised. Don't be surprised. Why are you surprised? As though something strange was happening. What did you think? Could you imagine a soldier at war running back to his commanding officer and crying and going, they were shooting things at me. Real bullets. He would just look at that soldier and go, well, what did you expect? What were you thinking when you joined the army? Did you think we would just come out here and then everything would be nice and easy? No, we're at war here. And we need to realize that. And so Peter tells these faithful believers who've been persecuted, he says, don't be surprised at the fiery ordeal or the fiery trial. This word fiery or burning ordeal most likely was literal. Most likely referred to at that time the persecution of Nero towards the Christians. Nero, the emperor at that time, used to take the Christians and light them on fire and use them as human torches in his garden. And so Peter, seeing that from afar and knowing this persecution that's going on, he's telling these believers, don't be surprised at that. This fiery ordeal. Didn't you know how serious this was going to be? Or you're acting like something strange were happening to you. We knew. I mean, Jesus told us this. Jesus says in John 15:18, if the world hates you, keep in mind it hated me first. He says in John 15, verse 26, he says, no servant is greater than his master. If they persecuted me, they're going to persecute you also. Think about it. If I'm the master and you're my servant and this is what they do to me, and they call me the devil, they call me Beelzebub, what do you think they're going to call you? What do you think they're going to do to you? So here it is, Peter again going through this and saying, hey, don't be surprised. Don't be surprised at the fiery trial when it comes upon you to test you. To test you. I've been thinking about this idea of testing. Because the Bible makes it very clear that there are some, like he said, who will fall away at times of testing, right? When he talks about the parable of the four soils, he says there are those who, are like this concrete here. You could throw seed. There's some people probably in this room that no matter what I say, it's not penetrating. And I don't know what it is in your life. I mean, it breaks my heart. I wish. I don't know what happened to you. I know there's painful things that happen on the earth. I know that some of you have been lied to. I mean, I don't know if it's true of you, but for me, it seems like every year I trust fewer and fewer people. And it's almost easier to live life just assuming that everyone that runs into you is a liar so that you won't be disappointed. And you just assume everyone's lying and that, unlike when you were younger and you just trusted so many people. And maybe some of that pain, maybe some of that hurt makes you go, well, how do I know this guy's for real? How do I know any of these people in this room are for real? And so no matter what I say, there's hardening. The Bible says it's like when a farmer throws seed and it lands on the hardened path or the sidewalk, basically. He goes, there's nothing you can do. And he goes, but then there's other soil. He says there's this rocky soil, and he talks about sometimes it'll land on the rocky soil. And what happens when the seed lands on the rocky soil? It's not really soil; it's rocks. But there'll be some dust or some topsoil that's been blown on top of the rock, and so something will spring up immediately. But it never penetrates. There's never any root. It never actually goes into the rock. It's just something superficial that's on top of it. And he says, so it'll look like something will come out, but at times of testing, the moment the trials come, or the moment the wind blows, the moment something difficult happens at the time of testing, it's going to be blown away. It doesn't really stand. And here, so we know that there are those, and there could be some of those in this room where, yes, right now, you'll come, you'll worship with us. How great is our God? Blessed be the name. We can sing these songs, but what about at times of trial? At the time of testing, when it gets difficult, will you still sing that song? Because we say that, we sing that and it's taken out of Job, but Job 1 is one of the, I don't want to be sacrilegious here, but like, it's one of the strangest passages, isn't it? I mean, for us, because we're so used to thinking that everything revolves around us, right? And we have this me-centered universe. Then you read Job 1 and you go, wait, what? Satan and his demons are talking to God and they're discussing this person on the earth, and the demons and Satan, they're saying, well, Job only loves you because you give him everything. Who wouldn't love you? If you protect him, give him a beautiful family, give him all these animals, money, whatever he wants, perfect health, of course he loves you. You take that away from him and he'll curse you to your face. And God's going, no, you don't know Job. Have you considered my servant Job? No, go ahead, do those things to him and see what happens. Go ahead, test him. Let's see what happens. And it's through all that, after he loses everything, all of his riches, all of his family, that he says those words. He gives and takes away, but blessed be the name of the Lord. And see, that's the difference. See, that's not rocky soil. That's not rocky soil, and it's the good soil that says, no, bring the testing, I'm still going to love. I was with another friend of mine that I love dearly, another man of God who teaches the Word of God, who doesn't back down, Matt Chandler. You know, who was diagnosed with brain cancer, and I saw him not too long ago, and you know, they had to take this. He was showing me on his iPhone. He goes, "Hey, look at my brain," and he shows me this picture where they took out such a big chunk of his brain. And he's just sitting there talking to me about, you know, scar on his head, everything else. He goes, look how much they took out. Look at that big black spot. I'm going, oh, that's so gross. He goes, no, what was gross was the night after they took all of that out. He goes, I would lay in bed, and when I'd roll over, I'd feel my brain go blah, blah, blah. I'm like, that's so crazy. He's just like, because every time I turned, it was just, and he's just, you know, sitting there and laughing about it, showing pictures to all of us at dinner. Look at my brain, you know. And it was just like, what is going on here? You know, but here's a guy that when I heard about it, you know, texted him real quick, and he just texted me back. He goes, completely unshaken. Completely unshaken. It was the same thing, you know, when I was with Britt at that first lunch, and he just said, you know, I love God. I love Him, and I really do love Jesus. And he says, and I was able to look at Jesus and say, Jesus, I love you, and no matter what happens, nothing changes between you and me. I will still love you. And I go, man, that's so cool. That's not rocky soil, okay? That's not rocky soil. Rocky soil goes the other direction. When the trials come, you run. But really, this idea of testing here in 1 Peter is it's like a good testing. It's a testing to show you that you're the real thing. You know, it's Peter isn't saying this, oh, be careful, this test, you're going to fail. And no, it's not that. It's this idea, he's encouraging these people, saying, don't be surprised by this. As you're tested by it, you're going to see that you're the real thing. Haven't you had those times in your life where it almost feels good, where you go, oh, good, I am for real? Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, it's during the difficult times. It's those times when someone persecutes you for your faith, or you know those times when you have the boldness to finally share with someone, and you do it. And even though you may be rejected, there's this peace afterwards where you go, I'm the real thing. I am the real thing. Oh man, it kills me that I was rejected by that person. They hate me now. But there's also this weird peace. I'm just glad I did. I remember this one lady in my church. She was driving, and she just saw this fortune teller in town. And she saw this sign, and she goes, man, every time I passed it, I felt like I'm supposed to just go in there and just share with her. I know I'm supposed to. I know I'm supposed to. And she goes, just the day when she finally just got out of her car and walked right up to this palm reader lady and got in there and just started sharing the gospel with her and everything else. She says, I walked back to my car and I just got in and I just screamed at the top of my lungs going, yes! She goes, it just felt so good that I knew, okay, I am a follower. I will say anything. I will talk to anyone about this Jesus. I will confess Him. And she said the joy that was in her, not knowing any of the results. And then like 5 minutes later, that fortune teller called her, you know, on her cell phone. She goes, wow. And she goes, hey, I've got a cousin who does the same thing. She's even more evil than I am. Will you go talk to her? She's like, wow. She's like, wow, my first referral. This is so great. But it wasn't even the results in the other person. Of course you love the person. Of course you do that. But there's also this piece of, okay, I'm willing to go through the trials and I still love Jesus. Well, I've been tested and this is the real thing. This testing, I think of James chapter 1, verse 12. It says, blessed is the man who remains steadfast under trial. For when he has stood the test, he will receive the crown of life which God has promised to those who love Him. Another great verse is, blessed is the man who remains steadfast under trial, for when he has stood the test, he'll receive the crown of life which God has promised to those who love him. That was always an interesting verse to me, because it says, blessed is the man who remains steadfast. Blessed is the man who perseveres, holds up under the trial, and says, man, I know I'm pressed, but I'm not crushed. I'm persecuted, I'm not abandoned. This is heavy, this is difficult, but I'm going to stand the test. He goes, blessed is the person who perseveres under that, because once he stood the test, he's going to get the crown of life which God has promised. You would expect James to say, which God has promised to those who have held up under the test. That's not what he says. He goes, blessed is the man who holds up under the trials, because once he's been approved to receive the crown of life which God has promised to those who love him. You see that? He's equating the person who loves him with the person who stands the test. It's the same thing. It's the same thing. Like Satan was saying about Job. Well, he only loves you because you give him everything. No, you show your love when it's tested, and go, okay, I'm not getting everything I want here. It's not happening. Okay, here's the test. No, I still love him. And God looks at that person and says, blessed is that person who perseveres when it gets difficult, who stands the test. I'm going to give that person the crown of life, because I've promised the crown of life to those who love me. They love me. They don't just love me when I give them everything they want. They just love me because I'm this great treasure. I'm the Son of God. I died for their sins. I rose from the